Hello. Welcome to Darth Dragon what Welcome to Darth Dragon Does Math, where you get to watch my hairy fingers do math. Today we are doing multiplication and division, but we get to add negatives into it, then kind of see what happens. So let's start up. So if I have -5, and you know if it's just parentheses or nothing beside it, it just means to multiply. -5 times 4. And I'm going to zoom in just a bit. Whoa, that was a lot. Maybe not that far. -5 times 4. Really, that's very similar to just 5 times 4. Okay? Now, if I was just doing 5 times 4, what I would do is I would say, well, 5 times 4 is 20, because I have my multiplication tables memorized, just like all of you. But here it's -5 times 4. And basically I look at it like this. There is one negative. So that's a negative times a positive, and the answer just happens to be -20. And that's really the only difference. You add a negative in there, the answer becomes -20. And that's pretty simple. The next one is like 3 times 9, which we have our multiplication table memorized, so the answer is just 27. But this time it's -3 times -9. But I just want to bring to your attention, what would -3 times 9 be? Well, just like the -5 times 4 was -20, and -3 times 9 would be -27. But here we're doing it twice. Okay? So we're doing -3 times -9. Okay? So where the negative changes the sign. So instead of positive, this changes the sign to a negative. Well, now it's a negative, change the sign, positive. So every time you see a negative, you switch the sign again, basically. And so -3 times -9 is actually just positive 27. And let me kind of make a little table for you. A positive times a positive. Well, that's what we've been working with since we learned how to multiply it. That's positive. A negative times a positive is negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. You've heard me say in class a lot, double negative makes things positive. So yeah, so if you every time you do a negative, you multiply by a negative, you switch the sign. So a negative is negative, you multiply that by a negative, you switch the sign again to positive. Another way to think about it is if you have an odd number of negatives, then your answer will be negative. If you have an even number of negatives, then your answer will be positive. Basically, the even number cancel each other out, and the odd number do not. So this little right here, this can save you a lot of time. Okay, so let's back to the math. 2 times -3 times -7. Okay, well, we already know what 2 times 3 times 7 is, or at least how to do it. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 7 is 42. Now I can figure this out two different ways. I can say, okay, there are 2 negatives here. That is an even number of negatives. Therefore, positive 42 is the right answer. And that might be the easiest way, but it can get a little tricky later on, and you'll see that when we get to 2.4. What I would probably prefer to do is write it out like this. And just think about how the sign changes as I'm doing the math. 2 times -3 is -6. -6 times -7 is positive, because the negatives cancel out, 42. So either way you get there is fine. This way will serve you. This way is easier to comprehend, but this way will serve you longer. All right. These are all yours. These 3 are yours. It says student. This one's mine. So we got a word problem. A helicopter's altitude is changing at a rate of negative 17 feet per second. Okay, so it's changing negative 17 feet per second. Now, this word per here means that there is a fraction in this problem. Basically what it's saying is that the fraction is negative 7 feet. Per means that's where the fraction happens. Second, that there's no number there, that's 1 second. That's the fraction that we have. Find the change in altitude of the helicopter after 4 seconds. So we don't want 1 second, we want to know 4 seconds. This is how I set that problem up. We'll get to a lot more rates and things like that later, but that's how I personally see the problem. Last year we might have said negative 17 feet equals 1 second. We want to know 4 seconds and how many feet. We've also seen this problem like this. They mean the same thing. Basically what you're thinking is, how do I get from here to here? Well, 1 to 4 means multiply by 4. If I want to multiply, what can I multiply 1 by to get 4? I can multiply by 4. Whatever you do to this side, we do to this side. Multiply by 4. So what we're doing 17 times 4. The way we solve it in this one is the same thing. I want to get x alone. We don't work a whole lot with the equations yet. But to get x alone, we multiply up. So regardless what we're doing, both ones is going to be negative 17. Negative 17 times 4. Okay? So we don't have 17 times 4 memorized, but we do have 4 times 7 memorized, and we have so this is like negative 10 plus 7 times 4, except the answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to leave that negative outside. 4 times 10, that's 40. 4 times 7, that is 28. 40 plus 28 is 68. Just make sure it's negative. And it's negative 68 feet. So basically, in 4 seconds, the helicopter will have descended 68 feet. Okay. Backside. Word problems for you. Word problem for you. Me. We are doing division now. Okay, so I've said this before. Division is fancy fractions. So really what this is negative 25 over negative 5 like a fraction. I see it better that way. If I have to divide, I'll divide long division, but I see it better this way because I know that 5 goes into 25 5 times. So this is like negative 5 over negative 1. And just like if I were to say 2 over 2 is equal to 1, these negatives can't cancel out as well. Like if I have a negative over a negative, it's like they go away, right? So this is 5 over 1, which is just 5. Think of it like this. It's like a negative divided by a negative. Just like just if I was multiplying, a negative times a negative is positive, a negative divided by a negative is also positive. So the answer is 5. This one, I have negative 83 over 3, not 83, 81. That's a big fat 1. Negative 81 over 3, okay? There's only one negative, so my final answer is going to be negative. I don't know that off the top of my head. Well, I do, but I doubt many of you do. Let's do long division. 3 goes into 8 twice. That's 6. Subtract 2, bring down the 1. 3 goes into 21 7 times. 21, subtract 0. So the answer is 27, but remember I had one negative, so the answer is actually negative 27. Alright, and finally, we have 96 divided by negative 4. Okay, so this is like 96 over 4. There's one negative there, so the answer is going to end up being negative. Probably don't have that one memorized. I don't have that one memorized. So let's go ahead and do long division. Top dog goes in the house. Remember, it's going to be negative. So 4 goes into 9 twice. 8, subtract 1, bring down the 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. Subtract 0. The answer is negative 24. Finally, a nice little word problem. A submarine descends 720 feet in 6 minutes. Find the submarine's change in height per minute. All right, so it descends 720 feet in 6 minutes. Don't miss that word. Descend, it means going down. If we're going down, usually we have a negative applied to it. We want it, and we want to know height per minute, okay? So height is probably feet in per minute. If it just says per minute, imagine that says per 1 minute. So it's like this was a 1. We're doing the same thought process. How do I go from 6 to 1 by multiplying or dividing? Well, that's just like dividing by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So I need to, over here, divide by 6. So to do that, 720 over 6, the answer is going to be negative because it's negative 720. So let's do long division, have a little bit of room over here. 6 goes into 7 one time. 6, subtract 1, bring down the 2. 6 goes into 12 twice. That is 12. 0, 0, everything's 0. Don't forget your extra 1. So it's 120. But it's negative, right? Because it was negative over here. So this is negative 120 feet. So if 6 minutes it drops 720, in 1 minute it'll drop 120. So I got a couple word problems. Couple problems on the next page for you guys. Finish it. Go to last tomorrow. Have a good day. Math!